Many people are natural storytellers. So, for example, I admire people who can take an event or multiple events out of their own lives and then spin them into a tale. And the reason why I do that is because life doesn't come story shaped. What happens in our lives is chaotic, it's a mess. It's horrifying to look at if you want order in it. There is no order in our lives, there is no story sense in our lives, usually. At least in mine there isn't. Perhaps other people lead more charmed lives where things follow an exact pattern. However, even in a life as narratively turbulent as my own, there is occasionally, and I believe that happens in all of our lives, there is occasionally an event that comes in the shape of a story that is so perfectly suited to telling. And now, there are various archetypal stories that these story shapes may come in. In the case of the story that I'm going to tell, it is the story of a man who is walking through the old medieval center of a town, labyrinthine streets, little alleyways, and kind of dark places where you can get lost. And he's walking there in the evening and he finds a shop window, brightly lit, honey-coloured light coming through these thick glasses that you can't see through. And he has never seen this shop before, so curious, and because it is quite cold outside, he goes into that shop and he realizes that inside of this shop, an old warren, he finds things that he has only dreamt of until now. He finds things that he didn't even know existed, and he finds things that he thought until now he had only imagined, like little things, not great, important, or useful things, but stuff that he has been dreaming, scheming, thinking about his entire life. And he looks around, he wants to get something and realizes he forgot his wallet at home. So he excuses himself for a moment, runs out, runs back home. He lives in that city, that town, and comes back with a wallet in his pocket to the same place where he found the shop, but the shop is gone. Nowhere to be seen. The window that was brightly lit before is dark, and if he tries to look through the thick glass, he can only see dust and broken furniture, as though the shop had never existed. And for the rest of his life, maybe, he wanders around, wondering whether he imagined that or whether he actually saw that shop. So, when I was a child, let's imagine about 6, 7 years old, I grew up in a small village. I had specific routes that I would walk back when school was out, and I was about to walk back home. I had several routes that I would take. And one was the autopilot route, where if I was lost in thought, which was quite often, I just went along this little autopilot route to get home. And the other one was the scenic route, which I would walk along if I wanted to see stuff, wanted to see things, and like on a particularly sunny day, I could just walk around and feel like I'm having a good time. And there were various explorers routes which would take me down little streets that I'd never gone down before. So that particular day I was walking the second kind of route. I was feeling like exploring, and I came past a house that I had walked past very often. It had usually always been empty, but this time a young boy about my own age stood in front of the garden gates of that house, and he said hi, and I said hi back. And as it's usual among children, he would say, do you want to come in and play? And I said, sure. So I knew my parents wouldn't be worried. I sometimes got lost and walked around a little longer than I would. And if they even noticed that I was gone, they would just ask me what was going on. So I said, yeah, sure, let's go in. And we went into the house. It's a big 3-story house. It still stands in the village. He took me up there, and his mother was there. His mother, I remember her as a somewhat tired-looking woman, beautiful, tall woman with long brown hair, and she just saw that someone was coming in with her son, and she wasn't particularly surprised. She just asked, do you want some sandwiches? And we said, sure. And so we went off to play. And now, we were going to play with, and here I'm giving away my probably advanced ages, we were playing with Masters of the Universe figures, those action figures that you could use, like very surreal and partly grotesque kind of figures of monsters, of hybrids, chimeras, and quasi-mythic like heroes, like dime store mythology. But I really like them. I had earlier found these, that was pre-internet time, so I had found through some curious chance, I had realized that these action figures existed, and another friend of mine had sold me his collection and so on. So I had quite a collection of those action figures to play with and to make up stories with. But this boy, he had Masters of the Universe figures that I had never seen, that I didn't even know existed. And a new world opened up in front of my eyes, and he showed me the catalogue where he had got them from, and there were even more figures that I didn't know existed, and it was like entering into a world of marvels right in there. And so then we began the critical part, which is splitting up the action figures, who gets which figure to play with. You know, it's like two different teams, and I think this is where young boys learn strategy, politics, and perhaps also fighting techniques in these sort of very, very complex negotiations that determine who's going to play with which figure. You know, it has to be fair, but you also have to cheat a little bit to get those that you want. It's a very, very complex process. So we made that, and we played around it, and we spent the whole afternoon. It was, flew by. Time just flew by as I was playing with these newfound strange toys. And then the evening came around. We had eaten some sandwiches, had some juice, and as it got darker, I realized, well, it's probably time for me to go. And so, with a heavy heart, I said goodbye to these action figures and to the boy and his mother, and I left. And we said we'll meet again at some point, sure. And the next time I walked past that house, you already know what is going to happen, because I told you what kind of story this is. So the next time I walked past that house, there was nobody living in there, and it looked like nobody had ever lived in there. At least not for weeks, months, perhaps a year. It was as empty as before.